Hi, in this workshop, I'm going to go through the process of creating a web application and configuring it for Arweave and the Permaweb, then deploying it on the Permaweb, and then setting up a reverse proxy to provide a fully qualified domain to connect to our application on the Permaweb. So this is for web developers interested in deploying applications on the Permaweb. You should know about web development, JavaScript, Node.js, and Git. Should understand concepts behind Arweave and the Permaweb. Finally, you should feel comfortable around the command line. Um, like I said, the three things we're working on today is building a web app, very simple counter app. Um, Configuring it to be deployed to the Permaweb, deploying it to the Permaweb using the Bundlr CLI, and then setting up a reverse proxy so that we can have a nice URL to reference our Permaweb application. So to get started, first thing we need to do is create a web app, and we're going to use Vite to do that, and Svelte. These are tools that I use, but you can use Create React app or anything else that you prefer. So we're going to use Svelte, do it in our template, and we'll just run this create command, which will create a folder. We'll see it, cd into that folder and run npm install and npm run dev. And that should fire up a web server locally in our environment. And we have our nice hello world web server. For we actually deploy uh, to a Arweave network, and we get a transaction ID for each file. So when we deploy our app, we're going to have a transaction ID, and we'll reference that using HTTPS and then the gateway and then the transaction ID. So in normal web server language, this is a subpath. And that subpath, we need to connect all of our assets that are running in this application to that relative subpath. So for our DApp, we'll go into the viteconfig.js and we'll add a base and set it to blank. This will make the base URL of the app essentially the relative path. So if it's on, gateway transaction ID 1234 slash index.html, and it wants to include assets slash app.js, then it'll know to relatively link those assets to the subpath and not the root, which typically is what happens when you deploy to a web server. So we've got that. And by the way, in React Create app, you would go into your package JSON and set the homepage property in the package JSON to quotes, period, quotes. Um, so the other step we need to do is handle routing, because we want to support deep linking in our app, because that's the power of the web, to be able to have deep links. So we have slash notes 1234, and we copy that link and paste it on social media, and then someone can click it and go to that document. And with single page apps, typically you would set that by setting custom routes in the server, or using something like hash routing. And that's what we're going to use, is hash routing. And the first thing we're going to do is install a Svelte routing library called Tinrow, and we're going to use it to implement our hash routing process. So now that we have that installed, we're going to go to source app.svelte, and we're just going to delete all of that, and we're going to Just go over here and install the Svelte package. Make sure. Okay, it's installed. Cool. And then make sure we get the highlighting. Yep, nice. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just import router and the route component from Tinrow. And then in our markup, we can say route path equals slash, and we can just do home, and then create another route path equals about, and do about. And so we can add components in here. We can add just regular markup. We can do all kinds of things, but that kind of specifies our 2 pages here that we want to route to. And then we want to set the router.mode to hash, right? And this will allow us to support deep linking. And, let's go ahead and see how that looks. npm run dev. Now, in order to see how that looks, let's add, well, let's just do this up here. Nav, love, autocomplete. And we'll say href equals slash equals home. And we'll say href equals slash about equals about, right? And if we take a look at our app, we've got home and we click about, we go to the about page, we click home, we go back to the home page. So we got our little nav bar here. And let's go ahead and add a counter to our home page. So we'll create a variable, count equals 0. And then in our home page, oops, so nav. Okay, in our home page, let's create this little counter component. So we'll say Permaweb counter, and we'll give it a div, and then we'll say count. We'll set that to our count variable, and then we'll create a little button, and on click, we're just going to increment count by 1. Just call that increment. So then let's check out our counter here, and we can click and then go to the about and come back. Pretty cool. So that's our awesome web page, little counter app. And we've got our about page here. And yeah, so we've got this, and what we want to do is kind of deploy this to the Permaweb. So again, if we want to take a look at our routes, we can see this hash being inserted, and when we go to about, it's slash about, and when we go home, it's just an empty link. And when I go to about, I can copy the URL, and we can see that deep link is supported because when I enter it in, we go to the about page and not the home page. So that's pretty cool. And what we want to do next is actually deploy this to the Permaweb. So the first thing we're going to do is install the Bundlr CLI. Bundlr is a layer 2 network that does a couple of things. And those things are around speed, cost, and efficiency. So while this is installing, efficiency. So the Arweave blockchain or Blockweave takes transactions, and then those transactions get posted in a block. What Bundlr does is it takes and bundles a bunch of transactions and puts them into Arweave as a single transaction. And with that, we get more efficiency, so we can add more transactions per block by leveraging Bundlr. It's fast because it can directly update the cache. So when a transaction is added through the Bundlr network, it's directly updated through the gateway cache, so you can start using it right away. And we'll get an idea of how fast that really is. And then finally, cost. If you post a transaction, the minimum amount of data uh, or the minimum amount of transaction for a normal Arweave transaction is 256K. So if you post a transaction of 10K, you'll still get charged the 256K price. Um, with Bundlr, you get charged the 10K price. Because it's adding a bunch of items together, it can control the pricing so that you get better pricing. Now, it does charge an additional 30% um, to that. So you want to watch that. But if you're doing small files, and especially if you do files under 100K, oftentimes there will not even be a charge on that. So now that we've installed our client, what we want to do is call npm run build to build the production version of our website. And you can see we have one 5K file and 1.37 file in our disk folder. And the next thing we need to do is run our command line tool Bundlr. So we'll run Bundlr upload dir and give it the disk directory. And then we're going to use Arweave as our currency. So Bundlr supports multiple currencies. And for our host, we're going to use HTTPS node 2.bundlr.network. That. And we need to specify our index file, which will be index.html. And we want to go ahead and just set no confirmation so it automatically runs without a confirmation like that. And let's give it a shot. Okay. So it's asking for a wallet, and what I found that, and I'm not sure exactly what happens, but basically let's go ahead and create an empty wallet. So we'll do npm install Arweave, and then we'll just do node and bring in fs and bring in Arweave via require old school node. And we'll initialize Arweave with just the slash init. And we're going to generate a wallet. So we're going to do fs.write file sync. And then we're going to give it a name, wallet.json. And what we want to do is do json.stringify await, and then we're going to call arweave.wallets.generate, and then that's going to stringify that and save it as a file. So we can exit out of our REPL, and then we're going to run our bundler command again, and we're just going to say -w, and we're going to do .. wallet JSON. Let's see. So yeah, dot/wallet.json like that. And let's deploy. Cool. So it says that it finished processing. I'm going to just reset and say remove this dash star. And then I'm going to do npm run build. And I'm going to run the bundler again and out the wallet. There we go. So if I set everything up correctly, you can see in our manifest, we have index path.index.html, and we have our files with our transaction IDs, kind of our paths. So let's see if we got success. Cool. So we've got our counter, which works, and we can toggle from home and about. And that is on the Permaweb. So that is pretty awesome. And now what we want to do is use, create a reverse proxy, and we're going to use Deno deploy or deno.com. We'll sign in. And again, there's other tools you can use. I like this one. We'll create a new project and it'll just use the playground. And what we'll do is get my proxy code here. It's posted in the notes. And we'll just pop that in here. And all we need is the URL. So we'll go back and copy this and paste that right here. So basically, when a request comes in as strong pigeon 81, it's going to just forward that request over to Arweave in the Permaweb. So here you can see I'm getting the same exact functionality, but I'm using this nice fully qualified domain. And you can see that it's working outside of the little playground as well. And what's cool about Deno.com is it deploys to 32 edge networks. And with this little proxy, we're setting the cache control to set the proxy age and stale while revalidate so that we can deliver more updates and they'll properly, kind of break the cache so that the users get the most recent thing, but we leverage the cache when things are not being updated consistently. So that's really cool. And again, the nice thing about Deno.com or others is it makes it really easy to associate with fully qualified domains. So if you purchase a domain, you can go here and add domain and change your DNS settings, and now your app points to the Permaweb, just like I do with Permanotes here. It goes in, and I can hit connect, and I'm using the Permaweb app and being able to take advantage of the short URL that I've got as my domain. So that's pretty much it. I think I covered that pretty well, and hopefully you enjoyed this little workshop, and just let me know what you think.